Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good day. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you back to day two of Triple Play. This is where the group of us here, Jim, Ken, and Bill, and myself, are going to pick artists that had a run of three albums that were great. Okay. Not perfect, but great. Um, Again, we've each made our lists, and again, we've picked an artist that had a run of albums back to back that were, pretty much, again, not perfect, but for, for various reasons to us, they, matter, and they count in terms of their catalog. So, as I look at my screen here again, we're going to go with Jim for his
Hello.
pick for day two of Triple Play.
My day two, thank you, Armando. My day two is going to be somewhat of a continuation of my pick from day one. My selection from day one was the three album run from Yes, the Yes album, Fragile and Close to the Edge. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow the traveling Bruford. And I'm going to go from Close to the Edge to his next little band adventure, which was with King Crimson. And this is the three album run of Lark's Tongues in Aspic, Starless and Bible Black, and Red. Um, um, what to say about these records? Lark's Tongues in Aspic is much of it is probably one of the best amalgams of heavy metal and classical that I've ever heard. Much of that has to do with Fripp's, um, you know, fascinations with the classical composers. Also, the violin that's prominent in this three album suite. Um, the title track of Lark's Tongues can be as gentle and bucolic as you can imagine, and then within a minute, just be the most savage, gut-wrenching ripping of flesh that you can imagine. Um, and if that doesn't make you want to go out and listen to it, boys and girls, I don't know what will. Um, uh, Mark's Tongues was a five-piece King Crimson with two percussionists, Bruford on drum kit and a gent from Scotland named Jamie Muir on percussion. And Jamie did not last in the band through to the release of Lark's Tongues, and Bruford became the sole percussionist from then on. Starless and Bible Black is a mix of studio recordings and live recordings. The live recordings are done with the audience being very, very, very quiet, and and a lot of the pieces that were live are improvs. During that time, Crimson would just literally go out on a tightrope and they would just say, okay, we know that song A ends like this, song B begins like this. We're just going to improvise some connective tissue between the two. And the stuff that they do is at times it's wacky, at times it's savage, and at times it's just unbelievably beautiful and pastoral. There's a piece on here called Trio, which is bass, violin, and mellotron. Um, Bill Bruford is credited as a composer because of what Fripp calls his admirable restraint in the live performance of just taking his sticks and putting them across his chest, because Bruford knew the piece did not need any percussion whatsoever. He had that sense to hold back, and it's that admirable restraint that earns him a writing credit on the track. And it's unbelievable that they could just make up this stuff on the fly. Um, the other studio cut on here to me that just makes it worth the price of admission is Fracture, which again was performed live. It's not an improv, but it has a few little studio sprinklings over the top of percussion here and there, but it's not like they went in and fixed any guitar parts. It's just Fracture is just an unbelievable piece of music. Impossible to play, says the composer, Fripp, because it's just astoundingly difficult. Um, the last album here, Red, um, kind of is a brother of Close to the Edge in that as often as Close to the Edge, the title track is listed as like one of the greatest prog songs ever. The final song off Red, Starless, is also listed as often as one of the greatest prog songs ever. I mean, usually the lists that you see are, you know, Supper's Ready, Close to the Edge, Starless, usually in the top three, if not the top five, and they just sort of vie for position, fighting with one another depending on how the author tends to tends to go. Um, yeah, Red is a phenomenal record. By this time, Crimson was down to a trio of Fripp on guitar, John Wetton on bass, Bill Bruford on drums, and that's just like the most savage power trio you can imagine. Uh, Augmented by horns here and there on certain tracks. This thing has everything from the beauty and savagery of Starless to like some heavy metal bebop of how Bruford handles One More Red Nightmare. And Red is just a savage instrumental classic. This is not easy listening, but once you sort of get a foothold into what Fripp is doing, these three albums have gifts that just keep giving. Um, Not only can you find these in their vinyl versions and CD versions, but there's like box sets that go with each of these albums. I think the Lark's Tongues set had like 12 or 13 discs when it came out.
Yes, I have
Starless,
it. Yeah.
yeah, Starless and Red each have about 24, like, two Blu-rays, two DVDs amongst all the audio CDs that are in there. Um,
Yeah.
you got to be super fans if you want to go down that deep. But the thing about it also is that they were not insanely expensive. I mean, if you kind of look at the value of it, um, these sets were like $5 a disc. If you just sort of like do the
If you broke
math.
it down, yeah. If you broke it down
Yeah.
cost wise, yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's a pretty good outlay of money, but the value that you get from it is absolutely amazing. So if you're a Crim fan and you're on the fence, if you can find these big honking box sets, do it, because the live material in there are just absolute perfect complements for what's on the studio release. The
Yeah.
the Lark's Tongues box, I gotta say, there's some recordings in there that are pretty spotty. It
Yeah.
sounded
Rough.
like it was, recorded in a, from someone's tennis shoe and they were stepping on it, while it was recording. I mean, there's some
Rough
naff
doesn't even begin to describe those recordings.
for some of them. There are
Some of
some
them.
that are
For some,
beautiful, but some require a hazmat suit.
yeah,
It's pretty rough.
yeah, yeah. Um, no, no, good choice. And I have the Lark's Tongues and Aspect box set and the Road to Red box set. Um, so yeah, if you guys can get your hands on those, it's worth it. There's also another anniversary edition released of Red with featuring Steven Wilson remix that was released a few weeks ago.
Yep,
So
it's a four disc affair, much more
yeah, much more
palatable for the
affordable.
wallet. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going for about $75 on Amazon.ca for the 4 disc version. So if you can get it, get your hands on it. It's a good deal. No, it's a good choice. It's a good choice. All right, down to Ken for your pick.
Okay. Today I'm going with The Who. And this is one of my favorite three run, three album runs. But it's not gonna quite be the three that people might think. I'm going from 1971 through 75 with Who's Next, Quadrophenia, and By Numbers. Of course, we've talked about Who's Next multiple times on this channel. The classic album that Rises from the Ashes of Lifehouse. Baba O'Reilly, Won't Get Fooled Again, Behind Blue Eyes. This was really the first um, big rock album that I fell in love with while I was in high school. It's also the amazing thing is not just the songs on the album, but even the songs that were left off the album are equally great. The Seeker, Relay, Long Live Rock is my favorite, rock anthem songs. Townsend is known for his pioneering work with synthesizers at the time. And what's great about it is he uses to enhance the songs rather than dominate the songs like a lot of artists would do with the electronics. He followed that up with they followed it up with Quadrophenia in '73, where they went back to the double album concept format. Um, in this, he expanded the use of the synthesizers, but the album still rocks. It's unique amongst all the Who albums, is this is the only one without a John Entwistle song. Um, because it just didn't fit in with that theme, that story that runs through. And at the time it was somewhat derided, um, being called a Pete Townsend album uh, with the Who as a backing band. But luckily or thankfully, that attitude is kind of fallen by the wayside. It's just a phenomenal album. Those two albums, they are my favorite Who albums, and whichever one would come at number one depends on my mood of the day. But then they follow it up by Numbers, which is it's completely different. It's basically just a collection of songs. There's no theme. It's not concept. However, many of the songs are very intimate and biographical by Townsend of the songs that he wrote on that. And this actually has two Entwistle songs on it. So um, it's um, it's been looked at as the redheaded stepchild for a long time, but over the last 20 years, I think um, it's been reevaluated, and it's still one of my favorite Who albums. I read recently that they found the master tapes, so hopefully we'll get a big box set. Um, and of course, there are wonderful box sets of Who's Next and Quadrophenia already, which I would highly recommend. So, and then the Who is my favorite band, period. So, yeah, Who's Next, Quadrophenia, and By Numbers, 1971 through 1975. That's me, day two.
Good choice. Yeah, with Quadrophenia, just quickly, I've always said I prefer the production on Quadrophenia to Tommy. And I like
Oh,
it better
sure,
as a concept album than Tommy and people are gonna say,
absolutely.
oh my God, how dare you? But
I
I like it better. And the
do
ARP
too.
synthesizer is all over that album. I mean, like that was the year of the ARP synthesizer, right? The ARP, whatever you want to call it. Because it has a distinctive sound.
Mhm.
When when you hear it, it's like when you hear a Rickenbacker bass, not
Yep.
Bacher, Rickenbacker, but a Rickenbacker bass, it's a Rickenbacker bass, right? Um, it's a good choice. Good choice.
I Ken, if I could reach through the little zoom lens here and slap your hand, I would do that for failing to mention Pure and Easy as one of the
Sure,
leftovers.
sure. Well, I'm one to leave that for you. So,
Well, thank you. Ah,
cool.
A
you're
little
a
foot,
giver.
just a little footnote. There's on the box set, the massive 10 disc set of Who's Next and Lifehouse. There is a studio version of Heaven and Hell
Mhm.
from, you know, written by John Entwistle. And I don't know why that wasn't included on the album. I mean, there's a live version of that obviously on Live at Leeds, and because they would start the show with that track. But it's a good song. It's really, I mean, like I don't understand why they left it off the album, but um there you go. All right. Okay, Bill.
Bill.
Oh,
Yes. All right. Good choices so far, gentlemen. I'd go a little bit earlier with my Crimson choices, but I'm definitely I like the idea of going a bit later and giving a little love to Who by Numbers. I'm kind of curious how much Squeezebox in particular has been reevaluated over the years because I still love it, but a lot of people seem to absolutely despise that song. So I don't know.
I didn't want to mention that song, but you did.
And I associate it with my all-time favorite TV show, also Freaks and Geeks, because there's an episode where the dad is listening to one of the main character Lindsay's Who records, and Squeezebox comes on, and he's listening, and and then he listens to the lyrics, in and out, on and off, and then every time I hear Squeezebox, I cannot help the late great Joe Flaherty there.
Okay, a little side note. Can you imagine being a 5-year-old kid and listening to Squeezebox on the radio and wondering what the hell are they singing about? And
is that what happened to you, Armando?
that's exactly what happened to me. I was 5 years old, and I'm like, Anna, what? Never mind. Okay, it doesn't matter. Like, move on. What is this? Move on.
I was going to say, based on Bill's comment, we may have to do an episode of like TV series with the best music.
Yeah,
Freaks and Geeks is a strong contender.
yeah,
They fought hard
Exactly.
yeah.
to
We
get
can do it.
all the original songs for their box set when they finally put the whole series out. That's why it took them so long to do it, to getting the rights to all those songs. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's an
Well,
interesting idea.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that on camera. But yeah, listening to that song on the radio and asking my sister, and Anna was watching. Anna probably doesn't remember this, but she's like, never mind. Let's watch Sesame Street. And it's like, oh, okay. I know, okay. But moving on.
All right,
They had
back to
different
the
ways of
focus of
they had
the
different ways of teaching in and out on Sesame Street.
There you go. There you go. Number one. Go on. Okay. Go on, Bill. You pick.
All right. I'll just go ahead and stick to my wall for now here. No, not that wall, this wall behind me. I'm going to go for Electric Light Orchestra. And the run here, as you can see behind me, is El Dorado, 1974, Face the Music, 75, and a New World Record from 76. I like a lot of other stuff from Mr. Lynn and company, but this is the perfect sweet spot for me. It's where he had, I think, just the right balance between that kind of proggy sort of past that the band started with and the more streamlined pop that he went to later. And he went kind of away from the orchestra part and kind of became ELO as opposed to the Electric Light Orchestra. I know a lot of people would probably throw Out of the Blue in here and kick out El Dorado, but not me. I think this is where it happens right here. El Dorado still has a bit of that progressive rock. I'd say it's more art rock, really. I don't think this band ever fully fit into the prog category. They're a perfect example of an art rock band to me. It's kind of why that definition exists almost. But yeah, the orchestra part of the Electric Light Orchestra is very much intact on El Dorado in particular. The famous song from here, the most famous is, of course, Can't Get It Out of My Head, which is absolutely gorgeous. My favorite is Laredo Tornado, though. I just love singing along with that song when Jeff gets into the chorus. It's just, yeah. If you have not heard Laredo Tornado or El Dorado, by all means, why not? Go get it. Check it out. Face the Music. This is kind of where his songwriting really got them the pop hits at last. It had some success previously, but this had Evil Woman and Strange Magic on it and kind of took them to the next level with chart success, I think. But again, it's not just the singles, it's the album cuts here. Fire on High is a very famous instrumental.
Bloody hell.
FM staple, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When I saw the reunion tour, supposedly, and not really reunion tour. You know, Jeff Lynne's ELO, the
Wow.
tour that he just did recently. We did a review on the channel. But there was a version of Fire on High, an edited version, because I guess they didn't want to destroy the guitar player in one song there. Had the rest of the concert yet to go.
Yeah, for the rest of the
Um,
show, yeah. Okay.
but yeah, and it was also famously used for Wide Wide World of Sports on ABC back in the 70s, for those who remember that. Um, yeah, Waterfall, Night Rider, these songs are just wonderful stuff, just as good as the singles, if not better. And then, of course, a new world record, which was featured on our 31 Perfect Albums series. Deservedly so,
Yeah.
because it really is a
Yeah.
perfect album.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, we said plenty about that on that series, but yeah, I wouldn't change a note of this thing. This is probably, I don't know, it's a toss up between this and El Dorado, but they're very different from each other. If I'm going leaning toward the more pop ELO, it's got to be a New World Record as my favorite. If I want a little bit more of the proggy stuff, then it's El Dorado. But either way, and Face the Music is the glue that holds them together. It makes that bridge. So yeah, this is the ELO sweet spot right here, 74 to 76.
Nice.
Yeah. And I mean, I went out one Sunday afternoon when I first moved here. Actually, it was before I moved here. I was visiting. Went out one Sunday afternoon. I grabbed all of the ELO on vinyl and just snatched it and just bought it. Like, um, yeah, just amazing. Just amazing. And a new world record, telephone line. Come on. I mean, you got to mention that. I'm sorry. I mean, that's poignant, beautiful. It's just, it makes me cry when I hear it. So it's a good choice. Good
Yeah,
choice.
that album, the New World Record, I think is just a perfect um, pop synthesis of kind of Bill's influence. You know, there's some of it that's completely obvious, but there's just this whole enveloping of that aesthetic that I think works so well on that record.
I mean, it's got to be said, Jeff Lynne wears his Love of the Beatles on his sleeve. I mean, like it's there. It's evident.
Literally in the song lyrics, faded like the Beatles on Hey Jude, Shangri-La.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go. There you go. Fantastic choices, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, my pick for day two of Triple Play was a switch out. Originally, I was going to go with Genesis with a Nursery Crime, Foxtrot, and Selling England by the Pound. But we have been talking Genesis to death lately on the channel. So I did a switch out. I guess you call it Audible. We're going with the Rolling Stones with
Hey.
Sticky Fingers, X on Main Street, and Goat's Head Soup. Now, bit of background. This was where Sticky Fingers. I need more coffee, guys. Sticky Fingers, 71. This was where the band started their own record company, Rolling Stones Records, distributed through Atlantic Records, Warner Brothers Music, Records, etc. And this is where they kind of just sort of stretched out musically and just took a breath in and just like, okay, we're out from under the old management with, they finished their deal with Decca and their management with Alan Klein, who, according to them, stiffed them on their management deals, on the recording deals. And they're just started brand new. To me, Sticky Fingers is just a balls out rock album. Fantastic. Starts off with songs like Brown Sugar, Sway, Wild Horses, which Guns N' Roses would do like just a little snippet of their tour in 90, 92, 93, whenever that bloody tour ended, the Illusions tour ended. Can You Hear Me Knocking? You Got to Move. Sister Morphine, co-written with Marianne Faithfull. Fantastic. Side 2 starts off with Bitch. I'm sorry. You got me right there. Okay. It's, fantastic. It's just fantastic. And you know, this is where you've got Billy Preston along for the ride, adding additional keyboards, etc. Albums were produced by Jimmy Miller at this point. Then they move into 72, released May 12th of 72, Exile on Main Street, double album. My God, 18
Muscle
songs.
Shoals, right?
Hmm?
Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Is that where they were? Where
Yeah,
they
it was
recorded
recorded in various locations. Yeah, and at this point, there were also uh, tax exiles, so they were recording in various locations, in France, most especially. Exile on Main Street again. Songs like "Rocks Off," "Rip This Joint," where when I hear "Rip This Joint," it almost sounds like Mick Jagger's throat is being ripped apart because he's just screaming at the end of, on the choruses and the verses. Just amazing. You know, features the single Tumbling Dice, right? I mean, th this album with all of its material, 18 songs in total, 67 minutes. There's such a mixed bag of, you know, blues rock, country, straightforward rock. It's not one of Jagger's favorite albums because it's such an eclectic mix of music, right? It was recorded in pieces. Um, but you know what? It continued the success that they were having, right? They were just going from success to success to success. And also features the single "Happy," which features Keith Richards on lead vocals. But then, you know, you go into 1973 with Goat's Head Soup. To me, this uh, is a fantastic album from start to finish. Starts off with Dancing with Mr. D, 100 years ago, Coming Down Again, Heartbreaker, um, Angie, and I'm going to put again to rest the myth. This song was not written for Angie Bowie because of a salacious situation that apparently happened, okay, between Bowie and Jagger. It didn't happen. That was not the reason why. Whatever you guys out there are thinking, it's not the reason. She did not catch them in bed together with a jar of Vaseline between them. That was not what happened, okay? We're not going to go there. But the reason for the song was that Keith Richards and his wife Anita at the time had a baby girl. They named her Daffodil. She was born in a Catholic hospital. They needed an actual name, a Catholic name for the baby, for the birth certificate. He just kept saying the phrase Angie, oh Angie in his head. So they gave her the name Angela, and thus the track was written. Beautiful song, beautifully done. Lyrics done by Jagger. Beautiful arrangement. Amazing, amazing. This album overall, Goat's Head Soup, for me is fantastic. You also have the track Winter on this album. Can you hear the music? And it ends off with Star Star. The original title for the song was Star Fucker. But Ahmet Ertegun for Atlantic Records said, no, we're not having that. You can have it in the choruses, which they do, but it's sort of muffled a little bit, right? Just slightly muffled, but you can still hear it. So they ended up retitling it Star Star. But from top to bottom, out of the three, although they're good, Goat's Head Soup is my favorite one because the sound on this album, the production on this album to me is fantastic. Even though in terms of players, Bill Wyman only played on 3 tracks on this album. And the rest of the bass duties were handled by either Mick Taylor or Keith Richards. It is a fantastic album, start to finish. There are various box sets available of Goat's Head Soup, as with Exile and Sticky Fingers. There's on the double disc version of Goat's Head Soup, there's a track called Scarlet, which features Jimmy Page on guitar. And he has a daughter named Scarlett, so whether it was written for her, I have no idea. But for day 2 of Triple Play, my pick of three album runs is the Rolling Stones. So there you go.
I think you're kind of on the your Goat's Head Soup pick is kind of along the lines of Ken's Who by Numbers pick. It's one of those albums that came after a really well-known strong patch by the band and was kind of not so critically accepted for many years. But I think much like Who by Numbers, it's also gaining a lot more love over the years.
Yeah.
But the whole Mick Taylor era in particular has.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people count, Beggar's Banquet as within those run of albums that were just top notch, right? But for me, my picks also had an emotional thing too. Like when you hear them, for me, obviously with the Queen albums, it takes me back to a certain time, certain frame of mind when I was younger. So I mean, and Goat's Head Soup, I love the production on the album. I think it's a strong album, much like I like the album at the same time, at the same year from Alice Cooper, Billion Dollar Babies. I think that album from Alice Cooper was phenomenal in its songwriting, and you could see where he was going in terms of the theatrics, with Alice Cooper, right? And the production from Bob Ezrin was just brilliant. It would fall apart afterwards with Muscle of Love, but anyways, but that's how I pick my choices for this list. So,
And I think outside of the musical community, Mick Taylor isn't recognized enough.
and he should be.
He should be.
I mean,
He's phenomenal.
yeah, I don't understand that. I don't understand that, but I mean, and it was, after Goat's Head Soup with It's Only Rock and Roll, that people don't look at that album the same as they do Goat's Head Soup. It's like that was sort of like an album that was okay. It has the title track, It's Only Rock and Roll, and I like it, but I like it, whatever. That album isn't looked as much as favorably as Goat's Head Soup is looked at in retrospect. So,
and the story of the recording of Exile on Main Street is legendary.
yeah,
I mean, for when they were recording in the south of France, it was pure torture, the conditions that they recorded in. So, and there's documentaries and all kinds of stuff out there. It's fascinating.
There is an official documentary on DVD, I think in Blu-ray, of the recording of Exile on Main Street. And with Goat's Head Soup, they recorded in Jamaica. And according to Keith Richards, Jamaica was the only country that would let him in due to his drug arrests.
Yeah.
So they were running out of time to get this project together. He's like, can we find somewhere that will let me in? Otherwise, we can't get this done, right?
Yeah.
Because being into tax exiles, right? So,
and I think Wild Horses, I believe, is their most covered song, I think.
Yeah.
One of my favorites is By the Sundays. It's just a good song.
Yeah. And another little footnote, there is a multi-volume documentary of the Rolling Stones. I forget the name of it. I think it's a 7-disc documentary of the Rolling Stones throughout the late 60s through the 70s into the early 80s. I do have it downstairs in the rec room. It's been aired on TV over the years, but if you can get your hands on it, please do. And it details all the recordings from Exile and Sticky Fingers and Goat's Head Soup and It's Only Rock and Roll and all through the 70s, Black and Blue, all of those albums. If you can get your hands on it, which I was able to, got my stubby little fingers on it a few years ago, it's well worth it. It's well worth it. So, all right. Any more? Sorry, any more notes? Any more comments, guys? I mean, no. Okay.
No.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Day 2 of our picks for Triple Play. Please put down the comments down there, down below, what your picks are for day 2 of Triple Play. And please click like and subscribe and hit the notification bell to keep yourselves on top of any new content I've got coming up. We will be back with episode 3 of Triple Play very soon. Take care of yourselves. We'll see you soon. For Jim, Ken, Dylan, I'm Armando, signing off, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.